Lord of the village. One day, Borum mounted a horse with his friends and decided to go hunting. They rushed to the plain, sending hunting cheetahs ahead, and letting the accipiters soar in the sky. Pastor Ruzb accompanied Borum on this journey, and entertained the king with stories of Jamshid and Faraydown. They spent the whole day scouring the plain for deer and zebra, but as the sun began to set, they grew weary of the fruitless hunt. Eventually, they arrived at a grove of trees near a village full of houses. Upon hearing the hooves of the king's companions, the villagers gathered on the rooftops to watch them. The king, seeking respite from the hunt, wished to enter the village. However, none of the villagers came forward to greet them, or invite them to join in any festivities. The king was disturbed by the unfriendly behavior of the villagers and said to the priest, "I hope that this village will become a den of wild animals and a hunting ground for lions and leopards, and that tar will come out of the springs instead of water." The priest noticed Borum's anger and curse, so he entered the village and addressed the people there, saying, "This is a good and green plain that is full of fruit trees and cattle. The king praised you for having such a prosperous village, and as a reward for this prosperity, from now on men, women, and children, all of you are lords and masters here. So you can make this place even more prosperous." After receiving this command, the villagers cheered with joy as everyone felt empowered. From that point on, the servant, the worker, the man, and the woman all became masters in the village. Consequently, disputes arose as each individual sought to assert their rights, leading to conflicts throughout the village. The once peaceful community descended into chaos, with residents engaging in senseless fights and causing a bloodbath. The village underwent a transformation, instilling fear and insecurity among its inhabitants, prompting many to consider fleeing. Ultimately, the village was left in ruins. A year has passed since that event, and the spring season has begun. Borum decided to go hunting and arrived at the green plain, but there was nothing left of the once prosperous village. The trees were all dry, the village was devoid of people, and the herds were lost. Borum was upset when he saw this scene, his face turned pale, and he feared God's anger, feeling a pain in his heart. He said to the priest, "It is unfortunate to see this prosperous village destroyed like this. Please go to the village, organize the affairs, and use the necessary funds from the kingdom's treasury to resettle the village." The priest hurried into the village and found it in ruins. He wandered through the alleys until he came across an old man. Dismounting from his horse, he sat beside the old man and asked, "O old man, why has this once prosperous village fallen into such ruin?" The old man replied, "One day, the king passed through this land, and a famous yet useless priest came to our village. He proclaimed that from that day on, we were all masters, and no longer had to obey or work for anyone. He said this and left, leaving us in chaos and sedition." Subsequently, a storm of looting and killing ensued. Upon hearing these words, the priest's heart ached, and he inquired of the old man about the whereabouts of their elder. The old man replied, "Our elder was once present when this land was abundant with fruitful trees and thriving cultivation." The priest then declared, "Now you are the master overseeing everything. We will provide you with coins from the royal treasury to purchase seeds, cows, and sheep. Anyone who opposes you shall be killed. If needed, we will supply you with soldiers and workers to restore order. Remember, you are the authority here, and all must obey you." Upon hearing these words, the old man felt relieved of his sorrow and quickly gathered the villagers at the square. He then led them to the reservoir, where they could begin working together to cultivate the fields and develop the village. They redefined the boundaries of each farm, and borrowed cows and donkeys from neighboring villages. They worked tirelessly to develop the village, planting tree saplings wherever possible. Soon, 1 or 2 farms were repopulated, bringing joy to the villagers' hearts. As a result, many residents, who had fled during the riots, returned upon hearing about the village's redevelopment and the old man's efforts. It wasn't long before the number of flocks, chickens, and donkeys increased once again. 3 years passed in this manner, and the village regained its prosperity from the early days. In the spring, the king and the priest passed through the village once again. Borum could see for himself that the high citadels had been rebuilt, the village herds were numerous, the fields were full of crops, and the trees bore fruits. The streams flowed with abundant water, and the plain was adorned with tulips and flowers. The land looked as beautiful as heaven. Borum asked the priest, "What did you do to repopulate this once desolate village? What did you provide to the people here to make this village shine like a gem in the midst of the desert?" The priest replied, "An idea revitalized this ancient city. The king instructed me to repopulate the plain using the royal treasury. I said to myself, it is not possible to have 2 thoughts in the mind and 2 thoughts in one brain. It will lead the heart to ruin. So, I feared God, realizing that it is not appropriate to humiliate worthy masters. A village with dual leadership is destined for ruin. I told them that everyone, from farm workers to women, children, guests, and servants, are all masters. That once pristine village had been polluted and destroyed. When the king pardoned the past disrespect, I visited the village to rectify the situation. I sought the counsel of a wise old man in the village, who suggested appointing a master. The devastation ceased, and prosperity returned to the village. The old man worked diligently and dedicated himself to the village's development, bringing happiness to its inhabitants. Though I had previously harbored ill intentions, I have now embraced God's mercy for these people. Truly, a righteous mindset is more valuable than any gem, and when applied correctly, it yields positive outcomes. Wisdom is indeed the true ruler of mankind. Borum expressed his admiration for the wise priest, acknowledging the worthiness of his position.